Hi everybody, I'm Nikki from The Leap and I'm here with Glenn, who's VP of Marketing Success and Insights at Meet, and Chelsea, who's Marketing Director at Levin. And this is part 5 and really sadly the final part of our series on how to create a killer marketing plan. And I genuinely feel a little bit sad because I feel like we've had a lot of fun, haven't we?
Definitely.
So today we're going to be talking about the measuring of your metrics for your marketing plan, your campaigns, and reporting that back to the board. I guess one, so you can see what areas of your marketing plan are working and what isn't, so you can adjust it, and two, so you can get that recognition internally for all the work that you're doing. So who wants to go first in terms of how you go about measuring and tracking?
I think the first thing to say is that you don't have to track everything. You don't have to measure everything. I think you can get a little bit obsessed with trying to justify every little bit of marketing tactic you do, every bit of content you create. Is like, oh, I've done a 500 word blog. How many leads has it brought?
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't.
How many views? What's the average time on page?
It doesn't matter. I think it's important probably as a marketer to keep track of stuff like that, because then if other things are falling away, you can kind of go back into the numbers and think, all right, that's dropped in terms of applications for the jobs, but it's because not as many jobs have been posted on to sales. So it's good for you to track it. But yeah, I think number one is don't obsess over to it. But the more difficult one, I'll let Chelsea talk about starting actually. Return on investment.
I mean, it's a really good question. So when I joined the Levin, which is almost 3 years ago now, we did not have a lot of. I think have we done another webinar where I've spoken about this? I've just had a real deja vu. Yeah, I've just had a real deja vu where I've just said this before. But yeah, there wasn't anything at the time. It was very much starting from scratch. We had a website, we had a LinkedIn page, and we had a CRM, and it was like, go. So it was very much starting from scratch in terms of, what am I even looking at? What should I be looking at? And all those sort of things. For me, my targets came directly from our CEO. So that was number one in terms of like getting, and I think this was one of our first things that we spoke about in our first session, like understand what you are being measured on board level, on senior leadership level. What do they want you to achieve in your role in the business? For me, it was about revenue. So it was about bringing in new business that will convert into closed placements, which meant there was the lead gen piece that we then had to think about, okay, how are we bringing in new business? How are we getting these leads? And how can I track them all the way through to revenue? So for us, we are still, even 3 years later, there's lots of things that we do track, but key part is how does a lead become a placement? And we don't have currently, it will be changing very soon, but we don't have any integration between something like our website and our CRM. So we use Bullhorn, which means we use Cube19 or Bullhorn Analytics now. I'm never not going to be able to call it Cube19. Which is obviously where all of the anything that is data on the CRM is tracked. I'm sure everyone will have some form of reporting software for that. Everything else that comes through the website is all done on Excel. So my trick is to, on a monthly basis, sometimes on a weekly basis, is to cross-check. And there's lots of different ways of doing it depending on what your software is that you use and all these sort of things. But for us, it's a really, really key thing to be having regular meetings with our commercial team or whoever it is that's closing those leads, whoever you're sending those leads to. Having that spreadsheet open every single meeting and being like, what's going on with it? We check it on the back end as well, just to make sure nothing's missed. And obviously some of our bigger brands now, that's obviously, there's way too much to go, luckily, in a good way. There's way too many leads to kind of go through on just, half an hour call once a week to expect someone just to know off the top of their head. So we do use a combination of, us checking manually on the CRM, on for notes and things like that, and then following it through all the way through to okay, now it's an actual job. we're aware this week there's been lots of interviews, there's been final stages. Okay, now we've made the placement. This is what the revenue is. So I've got a very, very hefty Excel document, which pulls through on a couple of different dashboards, and will show me what my total revenue is from that year onwards. Manual.
I was just
Old
thinking
school.
that it could be good to describe, because I think we're using the word lead
Sure.
quite a lot here when we're
Sure.
we're talking about marketing qualified leads or something, aren't we?
Sure.
Do you want to talk through your breakdown of
Yeah, so I mean, we've got, I think if you listen to the last episode, we spoke about a couple of different conversion points on the website for leads. And lead is a very broad term in this opinion, in my world. It could be a salary guide download. It could be someone who has actually clicked on submit a vacancy and sent in a job description directly and said, yes, I'm absolutely ready to hire. I want to speak to candidates
Very
already.
explicit.
Super, super warm, hot lead. The qualification process for us is, again, depends on how we then, once we've qualified it, is it in the right market? Is it someone who's hiring manager? Is it a real email address? Is this a student that's downloading something about the market? Once we've actually qualified it and scored it based on that warmth level of what the content was, again, they might have been signposted into a lead nurturing workflow, something else. When it becomes an actual MQL is when we send it over to our commercial team. Our functions are obviously, like I'm saying commercial team as if that's what everyone has. That's not necessarily. We have the sales team, the recruiters. We have a commercial team that sits in between marketing and sales. And they're the ones that are pitches. They're the ones who are really focused on our fee sizes and negotiation pieces, multi-hire clients, account directing sort of thing. And that's who marketing sends any actual MQLs to.
So you use the term, I think this is quite important actually, so in your own businesses it's a good idea to agree your terminology, because
Yes.
I'm on the calls like with some clients, and if I say lead they'll go no not lead,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
inquiry,
They'll
because
have their
Yeah.
own definition.
yeah.
So we use terms that no one else uses because I made some up.
No, but everyone's got their own
Yeah.
language for it. Like some clients, like what you're calling a sales qualified lead, they would call an opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's quite good.
We have commercial qualified lead, CQL, which no one else uses because that's not a real word.
Yeah.
But that is a term that, is very, everyone in the business knows what that is because we speak about it and the commercial team speak about it, and it's a way that marketing is seen as successful.
But it's important, isn't it? So in
Yeah.
your own business, get the key people around and agree, because then there's no debate. You know, if you set that out at the beginning, like whatever you call these stages, they're ultimately levels of warmth,
Yeah.
like you say.
Exactly.
And then when you are having your internal meetings and you're creating your reports, there's no, well, that's not really a lead
Yeah.
because X, Y, Z.
Agreed.
It's like, but then you also, so you looked at HubSpot, didn't you,
We did.
for the lead scoring system?
Yeah.
And like in terms of tech from both of you, I guess, what have you seen that can support? Because obviously HubSpot's an obvious one that people will know in the market.
HubSpot is great, and I would absolutely recommend HubSpot. It's very expensive, and for anyone who we're dependent on what marketing budgets you have, depending on what your tech budgets are.
Size of your team.
Exactly that. It might not be right for you. We went through the entire process and it was fantastic. It would do absolutely everything that we would want it to do. The cost factor made us go in a different direction. So it wasn't, I definitely would say HubSpot is fantastic, but it's very marketing. It's a marketing CRM on top of your CRM. So it is it's like having another CRM.
How do you do it? Yours?
We use, I nearly said Hairfish, and I will always be able to.
Automation.
Bullhorn
So
automation.
that's the route that we're going to be going
Yeah,
down.
so we use Bullhorn automation. I think one of the things, just kind of doubling down on what Chelsea said, I think sometimes as marketers we don't try to measure stuff because it isn't perfect in measuring. Is sometimes you do just have to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
And have an Excel spreadsheet.
100%.
And do it.
And it makes you, honestly, even though it's so heavy admin, it really is heavy admin. And I know that as soon as we've got some other kind of tech in place, some integration in place, my life is going to be so much easier. There's going to be whole hours and hours blocked out in my diary every month that I won't have to have blocked out because I can just pull a report and it will all say everything. Yeah. However, not having that in place and going from a place of it just feeling so confusing. How on earth do I measure something? I don't understand how this can equal revenue, to actually putting out into this like really, really nitty gritty Excel document, properly getting your hands dirty on it. It feels so relieving to see all of it actually laid out super, super clearly. And that spreadsheet has developed over 3 years. That first year's spreadsheet was nothing like what my current spreadsheet.
Download, Chelsea. That would make a good download.
Me just doing a screen share of my. That would be so boring for everyone.
Now, like...
All the formulas.
I think automation for us has kind of changed the game. I'm not sure. I've definitely said it before somewhere. And Chelsea mentioned it, is like HubSpot, you've got a marketing CRM on top of your own CRM. Marketing should own your CRM. They should be the ones in control of it to a certain degree in terms of updates and everything.
Are you in charge of yours?
Probably just edging that way now.
Yeah, because it's so, in the firms I've been in, it's never sat with marketing. As much as I agree, it should.
It's a very expensive Rolodex and a Rolodex for the younger people listening. There's a bit of technology with bits.
That was good that you switched into like, I need to explain this. I didn't even think.
But the way automation for us has built into the CRM has really made us look at data quality a lot more in terms of details being up to date, understanding what positions people are in, which sectors they operate in, rather than relying on salespeople to have those conversations because they live in the moment, is that we do that on a regular basis now. But equally, when it comes to marketing, is our email campaigns go out via Harefish, Bullhorn Automation. Everything that Mina does on the success point of view in terms of engagement surveys goes out, adds a note automatically, and then at the end of the month, end of the quarter, I'm really able to see, right, an activity X has happened at this point. Nothing really happened before, so I'm going to attribute some of that generation to marketing activity. Now you always get the pushback, someone saying, "Oh, I was going to call that person tomorrow," and you just happen to send, something like that. I think the next level you have to kind of get to, you've got your explicit stuff, like Chelsea mentioned, your website applications, people actively putting their details into forms. There's a lead generation tool on LinkedIn that people can do. Where's a good place to get to is understanding the non-explicit actions that people take and attribute a value to them. So if someone is going onto your website saying, "I want to hire 10 Java developers tomorrow," do you know what? You can say marketing can take 80% of that, because if the website didn't exist, they might have not got in contact X, Y, and Z. There might be a regular news email that goes out on a monthly basis to a segment of your thing, of your audience. They might not respond to that newsletter, or they might not explicitly say, "Help me look for a job" or "Help me for hiring," but over a period of time, if there's not been much activity on the sales side, and then after say 3 months they've been getting these newsletters, and then a salesperson had picked up the phone and spoken to them, is like, say, look, there's a good chance correlation based on nothing happening, marketing doing this, and then something happening afterwards. If you're tracking data, like, you know what, I guess say 20% of that. So attributing kind of a weight to different marketing activities is a good exercise to go to as well. You're not measuring anything, but I think you can make fair assumptions with some of that stuff if you're tracking it and you're over a period of time. Look, it's taken from a standing start, back in April 2022 for me. It's only from January, the first quarter of this year, January, February, March, is when I've been able to go through marketing activities, through engaging with our community, from people filling out surveys. I'm confident to say that ISM's activities at Meet have impacted X amount of pounds in Q1. And it's not getting questioned, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the dream is when you can join up the website activity with revenue, isn't it? But even from the website side, because obviously that's a lot of the time where our view stands, is that if your goals are set up correctly in analytics, you can, and you've got attribution switched on in Google Analytics, you can see the multiple touch points. So like from what percent of people or visitors started off on social, then went direct to your website, then engaged in a campaign. And it's really interesting to see. It's like, because people, I think in recruitment firms, or maybe it's all firms, but you know, worked in recruitment, I don't know, have any other reference points. They always seem to want to know which channel should we be doubling down on. But actually it is them joined together, isn't it? But when you're reporting on that, how much detail do you go into then? Because it's easy, isn't it, to get lost in stats in the world of marketing. Like what do you look at yourself, and what do you share with the board?
At top level, literally one metric.
What's that?
Associated NFI.
Yeah.
It was literally that. And you know, Chelsea's mentioned it before. You kind of speak that language. Like, well, what clients has that come from? Them? What candidates? I've got all that details. If those questions are what activities associated with it, well, I've got that. There's no point in sharing a huge amount. Obviously, there's still the source code, and you can say we've generated X through the Meet website based on applications, and those things are there. But when it gets into a board level, they've got 500 different other things to talk about. So if you're just able to demonstrate that, it's good enough. You might want to filter it down. It's always good practice to be, regularly catching up with division managers or however your business is set up, and communicate on one-on-one, saying, we've done this, we've created this. I think you're much better focusing rather than justifying yourself to every single person in your business, from the graduate who's been there 1 month to to the CEO, is focusing your efforts on using consultants to amplify your own messaging and your own content. Give them the perception that you're kind of doing them a favour, saying, can you share this, can you share that, and or whatever, and say how it will help them. And kind of you take the credit when it comes back in. Let them take the commission. We'll take the credit.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all we want, isn't
That's
it?
literally
We're not
taking the commission from it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that is literally the thing.
I picked up on something you said there. So you talked about attributing revenue from, and you mentioned only briefly, but from candidates, and that's quite interesting. Do you do that? So now you've got jobs on the website?
Not yet. So that's part of actually the next sort of like 6 months is really switching some of we're opening up our messaging to being really focused on candidates, really like seeing that as part of the revenue generating piece. And then exactly that, like being able to attribute, like obviously monetizing a candidate is a very impersonal way of saying this, but how much a candidate is worth is like in all scenarios, you need a job and you need a candidate in order to make the revenue. So me saying we're bringing in business development, we are still being targeted on candidates in the sense of we're not going to make the revenue without having candidates.
Did you say you are being targeted on? No.
Like purely based on the fact that we're targeted on revenue, and you can't make revenue without two things.
Yeah.
So that bit is from, our messaging is very focused on client side, client problems that we're fixing, how we can help you hire for your team. But we are going to start really impacting it by saying, okay, well, there's already a job that a sales team has potentially brought in, someone who's done from an outbound perspective. How can we help bring in more really highly qualified people to be able to actually put forward for that? And then how does marketing get like attributed to that because we brought in the candidate? Like we have jobs on our website, but we also, marketing is entirely the auditors of all of our LinkedIn jobs. So we do all the training, we run the reports, we do all of that on a for every single segment of our business. And we track within a placement report every single month how many of those people who have got a job have come from LinkedIn. So we're already at a starting point with it. Again, that's on something that's on the CRM. That's an easy report to run because we've got a source of where the candidate came from. So yeah, we're at we're almost there, but we're not quite there yet in terms of how
That'd be quite a shift, won't it? Because you've been so client-centric.
super focused on client for now. But it's about time, you know.
I think
coming up to
you
it
know
now.
it's a little bit of a reverse. So the only reason I'm doing it properly on candidates is certainly via automation. Everything has been kind of candidate focused.
Yeah.
So candidate regen campaigns. Obviously, we've been around a lot longer than Chelsea's crew. Is that?
Because it's crew.
Yeah, there was.
Do you remember Anchorman? Do you remember that movie? I feel like,
But I think so that we had such a lot of regen work to do, and you know client stuff is happening now. But when I kind of say client stuff, I won't be attributing it to a business. I'll be really attributing it to an individual, a hiring manager, a line manager, because in terms of our outreach and our content, it will be quite focused on them rather than a client.
Yeah.
I think the candidate side, especially if you've got a decent kind of contract business from a marketing point of view, if you brought in a contractor, it's easy to say straight away.
We're perm, right?
Yeah, you've got a sale straight away. Let's attribute that. But the reality is I don't even look at sales and the revenue, or you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Bell value, whiteboard value, whatever, is that I get a report every month from our finance team that lists the money that has hit the bank associated with candidates, and I get Excel cross-reference that with the activity that you've done for VLOOKUPs and do it, and that's kind of what I'm doing. So you know, there might be a contractor that's there for three years, and it's been bringing out 5.
Count that the whole time.
Of course,
Hell yeah.
Really? Yeah.
Because in a contract, usually in recruitment, well, that would be, you know, you only board 6 month value, but in the reality, it's been bringing in money into the bank for 3 years.
Yeah, which is interestingly one of the things that we have as frustration from my side of things, of obviously we're completely new, as I said, 3 years old as a business, or 4 years old as a business. We brought in a completely net new client. They didn't know who we are before. They've found us through organic search or something like that. They're now working out with us. We have a cap on our clients in terms of how much I can associate to marketing, because after a certain point, they kind of say, you know, it's not marketing anymore that's kept them like multi-hire clients. You know, that could be a client that could be like literally placed 10 people. We've placed 10, 15 people with them, but we only can attribute the first 3 to marketing, because it's like, okay, at that point it's sales. It's a success team. Yeah, exactly that. But this is the commercial part. You actually do have, I feel like your success team is our commercial team, and marketing, like a big part of a chunk of marketing sits within that commercial function as well. So I think it is very similar.
Yeah. So I think that's quite cool then. So you're reporting on a single number, your NFI generated. Are you a single number as well? Or you literally, And then in terms of your own team, because this is why I asked the question, because when you're managing your own team, you don't want them to hang on past glory for too long, right? So do you look at other metrics with them?
Yeah.
So what
of course.
do they look like?
So I mean, it's a mixture really. We've got the revenue, the way that I've structured the team up until now has been very focused on generalists in brand specific roles. So I've got someone who is within our fintech brand in Europe. He's measured on bringing in leads for that, which associate revenue towards European fintech clients. The same thing. That's why I've got 15 people who basically do the same job. That will be changing. We've reached a kind of limit with that kind of structure, but for those people, it's obviously regional based. So all of their targets added up make my target. Equally, some of them do have like MQL targets if it's a newer brand and we're really trying to just heavy launch it. Storm 6 is only like 6 months old for us. So they have very different targets to what our Storm 2 brand has, which is 4 years old. Equally, we do try to put in a little bit of that brand awareness piece. So we've got LinkedIn follower metrics that we're trying to kind of grow with. We've got conversion rate targets as well, which is trying to focus on the quality of the things that people are producing. So the whole team is targeted on traffic divided by leads, or leads divided by traffic, to get that conversion rate number to be like, you need to be understanding your market so well and your audience so well that the people who are converting and the things you're writing about are spot on for that market.
Yeah.
But we're building, right? It will change. It will this is right now, we've probably got another year in it of these sort of targets, and then it's going to be like increase every year up, you know, might be just specific project based, campaign based or something like that.
Cool. So I think the key message that's coming out here is that when you're reporting on your activity to, I guess, anyone outside of your own team, it's NFI generated. And it links so nicely back, and I'm kind of a little tear coming to my eye, the beauty of this. Because in our very first episode, we talked about go and speak to the leadership team, go and find out what the sales targets are, and pin all your activity to that.
Yeah.
And I think this just sandwiches all that in nicely. So start with going to find out what everyone's sales targets are, and then you're linking directly to that. And if you do that, you are part of the sales team. No one can argue with that. But if you keep
long-term sales,
yeah, but if you because I speak to a lot of people as well who are kind of frustrated that they're not seen as that. But they're reporting on things, the metrics that perhaps should be more discussed within the marketing function. But when you're talking to sales, speak in sales language, and you're onto a winner.
I also like to teach them things as well, like measure things that are, so even thinking about the conversion rates of an MQL to a CQL to a job added to the job being closed across the whole thing. I track all of that. So then I like to go to different leaders and be like, hey, well, actually your conversion rate of a lead, which is 4 times warmer than any job that you're bringing in based on all of our data so far, your conversion rate is dropping, which means actually maybe, you know, there's 3 things that we should be looking at, this, and this. Nice. Kind of trying to get them to be part of the conversation and actually be, you know, it's a win if we're giving them a job, that's half of their work done. Yeah. So like they should be kind of thinking about the, you know, these people already know the lead that they're getting is warm already. They know what we're doing. They're credible. All of these sort of things. It's been qualified. It should be an easier go of it. And then extra things like time to fill rates, little things like that are just, again, I don't do that on a top line at all, but I track that myself to be able to kind of pull out of the back pocket if I'm talking to one-on-one with sales leads, be like, well, actually, this could be improved and this is how we do it.
I think a lot of marketers are very guilty of not practicing their profession internally. You know, we know how to market, build up the awareness, build up that trust and credibility externally. We don't do enough of it internally.
Add value internally, exactly that.
And I think, you know, what Chelsea is saying is speaking the language. If you've got a grad that's just joined in the business, you're speaking to them about the best way to speak to candidates and find candidates, which is a given. But that interest in stuff of, you know, time to fill or time to first interview and things, and I've got kind of it's a very simple kind of automation that kind of we introduced because we spoke to the team and the pushback was, well, you know, the consultants should be doing that anyway. It's like, well, yeah, but they're not. But a very, very simple automation that goes out when candidates are shortlisted for a job via the database. They're automatically getting invites saying, you might, we saw this job, thought you're going to be really good for it. You may have already spoken to one of our consultants, just fronting that up in case, you know, they have been doing. But if you haven't, book a time in now. Yeah. That's kind of such a game changer. And consultants are coming in the next day, and it's already booked in their calendar.
They don't. You're making their life easier.
This is like that.
It's the sales enablement part of this. Recruitment marketing, revenue marketing, I guess you could even call it.
You're controlling the messaging. Like marketing is controlling that messaging. I think, you know, a lot of marketers would be horrified if we spent a whole week looking through emails that were getting sent, mail shots that are sent, or emails that were getting sent. We're the first to get shouted at when a mail shot goes out, and there's a typo, of course. But I think when you can control that messaging is so key, and taking parts of that process. And it really is. It's just doing as much as you can to reduce the chances of looking stupid, and letting the consultants do what they are good at, or what, you know, that's building relationships and creating engagement kind of on the phone, not doing the marketing,
Yeah.
the outreach and things. Because there's God knows how long it's been a conversation. Is recruitment is marketing, etc., etc. There is an element of it. The consultants are they're the biggest
Brand ambassadors.
brand ambassadors because of how many touch points they have. So if we can control that messaging, those touch points as much as possible, and as Chelsea says, demonstrate that it makes their lives a lot easier because they don't like doing half of those things, that's kind of how you build that respect, I think, and demonstrate the impact.
Yeah. Wow, I feel a little bit sad, but I think that brings us to the end of our 5 parts. But I hope you've gotten some value from that. And if you've got any questions at all, or there are any other topics that you'd like us to cover, do get in touch.
I'm signed up for a second series.
Well, surprise! No. In fact, our next series is on SEO. So we're starting that. So we're going to now we've gone through the top level planning stuff in this 5 parts. We're going to be delving into almost like technical sort of specialism. So starting with SEO. So you're off the hook, Glenn.
Yeah, I've got a clue about it.
What's it stand for? Oh, no.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it and do join us again. Catch you later.